Hello, Pioneers, and happy Astrological New Year. Certainly hope you're doing well wherever you are out in the Matrix. I'm sending you all much love and high vibrations as we get ready to transition into this weekly technical analysis with a little bit of a decode behind the Astrological New Year and the price action in Bitcoin today as we see it setting at 41K. I found some pretty interesting significance as to why we're seeing this on the astrological new year today, giving us that 223. When we type that out, we know that is the skull and bones number we've been decoding since before the Super Bowl, since around the second week of February. We've been making some pretty amazing decodes around this 322 as well as the 223 number. And also this 41 we get in the price action today on the astrological new year. We know we get that 41 in skull and bones. Something we've been talking about lately. So again, wanted to come out here, get straight to the action, one take, uncut, no monotony, no minutia, other than what we do here on the Daily Candle Close News, which is bring you these amazing connections as to why we see these things in the price action. The vernal equinox and spring equinox, also the astrological new year today, being the March equinox, also known as, something that I wanted to talk about today. Again, we're getting some very powerful connections in all of this. When we type this out, we know Bitcoin hit a 69K top, very symbolic there, as well as that 66 we've been making connections to in this in this channel lately. This 67 we know we get in order 322, and we've exposed that 67 connection a few times going back in time. Again, that 76 we got in skull and bones. We just recently had our full worm moon, or the worm moon, giving us some pretty powerful connections as well. 42K has been the resistance level for quite some time that we've been looking to break on the price charts. I've got this red line drawn right here at 42K was a level we came to on December 4th. The eclipse was a trading range back here around Rosh Hashanah sell-off around the 20th of September, the 21st, 22nd being a very volatile time period that we're getting ready to transition into tonight. So again, tomorrow being the start of Aries and the new astrological new year's, the first zodiac sign, very important, this 42K trading range, as well as this 42K that we broke out to in January of 2021 for the first time ever, 42K even on January 8th. So we know this is something that we need to break above and treat as support here. And this 42 being very powerful in our work, we know it ties us back into Saturn, Father Time, Chronos. So very important right here. That 42 we get right there. Excuse me. Very powerful connections though. Again, we also know that this is also called the sugar moon. Again, giving us that 42 that we're talking about. I explain these connections are as easy as 1, 2, 3 all the time because this is a very powerful connection. This 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. Again, tomorrow is going to be 3/21, 2022. So this all ties us back into Ouroboros and the perfect circle. Again, this 52 and this 1, 2, 3 we're getting in today's decode. It certainly comes back to a perfect circle, giving us both that 52 and 1, 2, 3, that 69 as well. And this ultimately ties us back into Ouroboros, which is the life, death, rebirth, the dragon that ate its own tail. Very powerful symbology that we're getting in this decode today. Undeniable. We know we have our new pink moon coming up on April 1st. That 4-1 date numerology, internationally written 14, 1, 4. But again, giving us that as above, so below, that 41 connection to this decode we were making tonight as well. But new pink moon giving us that 59 and 55 that we've also connected to this year. We know that 59 ties us into Tiger, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the year of the Tiger in the Chinese New Year. So that 76, the mirror of 67, as well as that 15 connection this year, and that 59 right here in this decode tonight, as well as that 55. We just left Pi Day, which was our most recent 55 connection, giving us that 15 as well. So something that I wanted to bring up in this week's technical analysis video to remind you of how important today in the transition into the weekly close, the open of the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and tomorrow Moon Day. 3, 2, 1, go. Let's see how important this is in the price action in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies tomorrow. We know how important the 21st and the 22nd of each and every month can be. Typically brings a micro a micro cycle low or structure low in the markets, or typically just some kind of reset. It tends to be somewhat volatile, and we tend to see some price action more than the average day around this time frame each and every month. It's something we've been pointing out here for quite some time, and it's amazing to continue to bring this up and see what happens. But could we break that 42 or retest 36, 37K? Um, you know, that 39K was a very powerful range that we could not break for quite some time. So a retest of that as well, something around that area, that 35, 34. None of that would be surprising to me. Those are all very powerful numbers that we saw come into play throughout this January and February leading to March period. All right. Boom. Again, tomorrow being the start of Aries, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, there is two ways to write this. You have Aries, the god of war, giving you that 43 that we've discussed going back in time, and Aries, giving us that 52 that we've talked about tonight, that 83, 38 we made connections to in the past. But ultimately, this is the Ram, ladies and gentlemen, giving us that 14, the mirror of 41 that we'll be talking about tonight. Again, Bitcoin is setting at 41K on the astrological new year today, the start of Aries, the first zodiac. This is ultimately tying us back into chrysomalis, which is giving us that very powerful 41 that we're discussing today, and that 166 connection that we've made connections to with the Russia-Ukraine war in the past, giving us that 224, and Russia-Ukraine, giving us that 166. Very powerful. That 224 was because the world got the news on February 24th, the morning of. We know that the war started on February 23rd, the 223 date. Again, skull and bones, ladies and gentlemen. So this Russia-Ukraine is ultimately a Boaz and Yachin ritual, which is a twin towers ritual that the elites like to play out. Again, giving us that 43, which is the 14th prime number, which we get 104. We drop the 0. It is 14, the mirror of 41. Okay. Something that's interesting about this Twin Towers and the number 41 and 14 is when we look at the date that the Twin Towers came down in this ritual of Boaz and Yachin back in 2001, we see that it gives us, it was the 111th day left in the year, the 254th day, with leaving 111 days in the year. Very symbolic to that 111 connection we make here on the channel. That gave us that 14 on a day that added up to 41 in numerology. Again, highly tying us back into skull and bones, giving us that 41 connection there. Something I thought was very powerful when we made connections to this entire decode tonight, centered around the Twin Towers and the start of Aries, chrysomalis. With everything we're seeing on the world stage, we know the ram is a symbol of sacrifice. So the ram is tying us into the Los Angeles Rams and Ukraine right now, both symbolizing the ram Aries. Very important. Pay attention to the color schemes that you're seeing on the world stage, both having that blue and yellow, blue and yellow. So again, very important. I've never decoded that. We'll see what that gives us real quick live. Blue and yellow gives us that 42. 132 is an anagram of 123. So depending on how you see that, but look at that, giving us that 41, ladies and gentlemen. Not even surprising. That's amazing to be able to do that in real time, and just add a powerful confluence to this 41 we're seeing on the world stage. Not surprising. The code, it just really does. It just comes to you, I guess. When you pay attention to it and you know how to utilize it. So something I thought was very powerful as we got ready to enter into the spring equinox. And I know we're done with this 41 decode yet. So bear with me and stay tuned. But again, the spring equinox, something I wanted to talk about today, being the full worm moon that we just exited out of. We know how powerful that this worm moon is to the occult if you do your research. We're getting ready to transition 2 days from now into 322, the Skull and Bones date, which is a 40-day period to May 1st. Mayday, 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 which is a very powerful 40-day blood sacrifice ritual that you need to do your research on. Big red pill for you all right there. Some of you might not be able to swallow that one. So good luck. But yeah. So this is a very important time period. All right, and here we go. Again, the ram symbolizing Chrysomalis, which is ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, the Greek god, also known as the heavenly ram, which was born of Poseidon. So very important. We know that this Chrysomalis in Greek mythology symbolizes the golden fleece. So for you to do your own research, there's some very powerful confluence there. And to our decode, it's amazing to make these connections as to why we're seeing things on the world stage in the past and present as we get ready to head into Aries, Chrysomalis, the very first zodiac sign, the leader of all zodiacs. So very important. We know that there are some connections there, as well as the Aries constellation. We see right here, we get this number 41 again when we talk about this Aries constellation, and it also indicates that it is a distance. It is a triple star system in the northern constellation of Aries, with an apparent visual magnitude of 3.63. This system is readily visible of the naked eye, and it has an annual parallax shift of 19.69 mass, which 19.69 mass is an arc minute. Do your research. It's an arc min, which indicates it is at a distance of 166 light years. So again, this is just adding more confluence as to why we're seeing these things take place on the world stage heading into the astrological new year. Getting both this 166 in Twin Towers, Russia, Ukraine, the war we're seeing, it all ties us back into the Greek god Chrysomalis that we talked about. So very important. We'll go ahead and exit out of all this. We don't need it anymore. For the decode about Chrysomalis. But again, Bitcoin sitting at 41K on 320. It's not surprising. It's all symbolic there. When we tie this date back into 2021, and we go back to let's go to our local top. I believe that's what it was on the 10th of November. This very symbolic 111 date. Again, November 11th or 10th, giving us that 111. That's when the 69K top came in. When we tie today's date into that, again, we get this 41, 4 months and 10 days. So it's something I'm paying attention to today. We know how important this 51 connection was that day, being the a day that left 51 days left in the year. Obviously, that's when our 69K top came in. That is the mirror of the 15 we get this year in the year of the tiger. So we know how important that 1551 connection is. Ultimately, it ties us back into the moon, ladies and gentlemen. Isis, Selene, Luna, giving us that 51 and 15. So important connections we'll make tonight. I think that's pretty much it. I just wanted to share that short decode with you all before we got straight into the price charts and talked about the price action as to why we were seeing this everything take place. Oh, I'm drawing. It's no good. All right. So again, after breaking out of 42K, again, after the pink moon, everything we've seen heading into that new moon on 4/1, it's not surprising to see a retest back of this 236 that we failed to break out above until obviously March 18th, 19th, and today, leading into the astrological new year. We know our full moon came in on the 18th. These are typically bearish, but in my last video, I talked about how this could be the low that we got in the structure that came in 5 days before our full moon. We typically see these windows of 3 to 5 days before on or 3 to 5 days after the new moon, full moons, being typically where we get our volatile price action or highs or lows that come in the structure. So very important that we see this and take note of it moving forward. And it's important that we finally get this breakout of this 236. This is our dead cat bounce that we drew from 69K top all the way down to our bottom that came in on January 24th. So that's something we'll talk about today also as well. It being a 55-day connection from January 24th to today. Again, another powerful 55 connection that we've made for quite some time. We know how important that number is if you're a veteran or somebody who's followed this channel over these past few months, and then you know why we see these things around this number 55. So again, back back test of the 236, not surprising after we break out. It's common in technical analysis to see this. We've held support of this trend line going all the way back to the C19 sell-off, scary time period. Not surprising. This is a bounce level. Again, we saw that in the RSI when we were overbought and when we fell below this trend line. So we don't hang out in these areas very long. I was able to come out and share that with you that, you know, this is the greatest time in human history for pioneers of the daily candle close news because we don't trip, we buy the dip. I had an explosive video, Don't Trip by the Dip, that, you know, got a lot of views, and hopefully I was able to help a lot of pioneers take advantage of some very volatile and, you know, crucial periods in the cryptocurrency market. We've obviously been up since then, so if you were able to take advantage of even, you know, the candle body closes, then currently, you know, you're up 19% if you invested into Bitcoin. So that's very bullish. All right. We haven't seen too much action though since my last video that I put out this week. We've kind of just been chopping around in this range that I've brought up lately. You know, we haven't been able to break back above 45K, and that's important. Until then, I'm not bullish, and even then, I'm not bullish until we break this 382.5 and the golden pocket of the dead cat bounce. But we know today is Sunday, the weekend, and crypto is the only game trading in town. And you know, it's funny. I want to break down this word week and weekend for a moment real quick because when we remember the word weekend and what it really means when said correctly, it is weekend, meaning when you're weakened. And you never want anything to weaken you in life, pioneers. Our whole language has been designed as spells. Words have spellings attached to them. They also have definition and they also have meaning. But there are spellings that I want you to pay attention to. So we have the days of the weak. And when you're weak, you're therefore not strong. That's why they have us working and going to school and doing everything in life during the week. So by the weekend, we're already weakened, like a wounded animal. Days means dies, pioneers, and that's ultimately what's happening every day. Horus and Set have their battle, the sun versus the moon, between daylight and sunset, aka sundown, where the moon, the lesser light, rules the night. Everything in this reality works in opposite because it's a mirrorverse. So never allow these spells to get you to lose control, or allow you to lose control, I should say. Don't allow them to get your control. They harvest your energy, your gold, your aurum, your chi. And it's amazing how basic these words are that humans overlook. But anyways, this weekend is been another sell-off. We've got the Chicago Mercantile Exchange opening tonight. Forex, Dow Jones in the morning. We'll have a little bit of price action going before 8 o'clock in our weekly close. Since daylight saving time in the USA, we did have an 8 o'clock switch to a weekly close if you're going off the New York Stock Exchange. About a week ago, last Sunday, during our decode, we was able to expose that. So 8 p.m. is the daily close now, New York time, meaning our weekly closes are now coming in every day at 8 p.m. Weekly and daily closes. So something to keep in mind if you're trading and more technically inclined in the cryptocurrency or, etc. market. If you're definitely someone trying to learn about TA, this market is definitely time sensitive. And when we get to the final 30 minutes of every weekly close and the final 30 minutes to 1 hour after the close, we tend to have some volatility in the markets. And the same thing goes in the markets when the Chicago Mercantile Exchange opens up on weekly closes. And it's not only on Bitcoin, but it's on Ethereum and altcoins as well. Sometimes the dollar or gas or gold, just depending on what's, you know, going on. Again, today being the 79th day of the year, I'm watching gold closely because gold's highly tied to that number 79 being the 79th element. So that's one instance, an example. What's interesting is how this has kind of started becoming a more mature asset and losing some of its volatility with Bitcoin's price action, over the past couple months. Its stability is, impressive. If you've been in this market over the past couple years, you're used to really dramatic price action and then pullbacks in Bitcoin that are just unbearable and very quick. And lately, it's been about 50% pullbacks for Bitcoin, building a nice base, a nice range, and then sort of just continuing on. And this is really nice to see. We saw this back here, and as well back here before, obviously breaking out as well. So I'm trying to keep people calm, mature, more focused on philosophy, and becoming a more long-term investor, especially in a market that is extremely chaotic and it's full of retail investors that don't do no research and build a thesis around their portfolio, etc. But what we've witnessed lately is the markets have become quite boring. And as the markets become quite boring, especially crypto, it's kind of exciting because, that's an opportunity for me because when it's boring, that's when I get excited. The 99% is flooded out. They've lost all their money, you know, it's the same thing as being greedy when fearful, or being greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. It's a huge mechanism of, boredom that I pay attention to because these apex predators and the ones that are running the market, the comp man, this entity that prints the money, the federal bank, the Federal Reserve, the central banks, the ones who run the show, um, it's interesting to see how regardless what's going on in the economy, we're getting a cycle within a cycle in crypto, and it's no different than any other tech stock or, anything that's experienced a Shemitah cycle before. Because remember, we're in the first ever Shemitah cycle for Bitcoin. And that's something I wanted to bring up and remind you of all today. And we've been able to figure this out for over a year now, how important this time frame would be since Rosh Hashanah and this day of the Shemitah, when we saw this volatility in Bitcoin. Um, I'm really enjoying this time because I've been a market participant for years, and this is exciting times we're in, and I'm ready to see where this takes us before we transition out of this very powerful year. Again, a first time ever year of having a bull run during a Shemitah year for cryptocurrency. So right now, one of which we know there's not a lot of retail hanging around, and Bitcoin's had a pullback of 50 to 53%. Altcoins have had a pullback of 80, 90%, some of which I've pulled back only 60, 70%. We see this very disgusting period for the average investor that thinks they're going to get into cryptocurrency and become a millionaire overnight. It's not like this time period we had back in April when I was discussing de-risking all the way back before our top when Elon Musk in the news was telling you to buy 57,000 plus dollar Bitcoin. I was suggesting that this isn't what pioneers do, and I was starting to come out on the world stage and speak my truths and start my videos. Um, you know, this is kind of like you know the time period when I was warning back again. You know, don't get lost in the sauce. De-risk if you've made life-changing wealth or had potential gains in your profits that were nice 2 to 10x gains. But the way that I was taking action according to all these moves we've seen in the past year, if we rewind and remember back into these times when we saw XRP go up to $1.40 into a day of Shemitah, and then it had its pullback. And we were talking about de-risking. You know, if you understand, I was getting a lot of slack for the things that I was talking about, and even now, being bullish when everybody's talking about being bearish. We got to remember that what works for others isn't what works for them. There's got to still be action being taken in case the market goes the other way. And that's what matters most, is what I'm saying here. It doesn't matter what goes on with the code or technical analysis if you don't have the ability to secure yourself and take action, because this is about financial security and not financial freedom. And that's something I'm exposing in my work. And I've already had people reach out to me and say, "Wow, man, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time out and sharing with this, with this with me for free." Because there's so many influencers that push this idea of financial freedom, and that's a mindset. That's all it is. It's a huge mindset change that requires a lot of effort that it takes to get to that position. You know. And how you get there is planting the seeds that your future self will thank you for. And it's those small little steps of learning a skill and developing a craft and seeing a overbought market and taking action, you know, that's going to get you there. Anyways, you can very easily determine all of this based off of sentiment. And if you've been in this market for a full year now and you've followed my work and you've remember what it was like of February and March of last year? You remember this time frame when I started and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, don't sell your house, don't sell your girlfriend, and go buy crypto. That was a top signal. Very few people were taking action in things like Chainlink and ADA right here. But when the market was down here, no one cared. When the market was down here before this time period, no one cared. You were a loser after C19 if you were buying because you weren't wearing your mask. You were buying crypto, telling everybody that this shit was nonsense. These were the real legends, the unpercent, us, the pioneers. You know, We've been through the 80% corrections, but with patience, we've always been right so far. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, you know? What I think, what you think, you know? Just make a conscious decision where you stand, with your protocol and investment thesis and stick with it. No matter who tells you who's wrong, no matter if we're in a bull market or bear market, because none of it matters. When you're in a nascent asset class that's going to be implemented into the future system and be the future economy of money, you need to kind of open up your mind. You know, we're still early. Remember that, pioneers. So if you've made it to this small channel, then I'm grateful for you. And I know a lot of you know these things, but now you're here and you're living all this nonsense that we're seeing in the markets and on the world stage, you know, while we watch the market build structure, get ready to bounce. You know, you're living through it. It's not just, you know, nonsense and conspiracy like everybody else has always said. You're seeing this getting implemented on the world stage by our governments all around the world. You see how this war has went from being a war to a crypto war all of a sudden, you know? So very important. As I've talked about, this full moon has turned out how we always thought, a little bit of a dump down into it 5 days before, making it a little bit of a higher low in this structure. And when we just show you real quick, we see this W pattern breakout that we're paying attention to as well. We're really zigzagging though, and that's important to pay attention to because the 21st and the 22nd, 23rd, 3, 2, 1 tomorrow, very important time frame that we're paying attention to. Could be very volatile one way or the other. We don't know. We'll see what happens. But we saw this bearish energy before the full moon, where we hit this micro cycle bottom so far because the month's not over yet. Just to be cautious. We're seeing it 5 days before the full moon, so very important. Try and teach you guys that that's where we see this 3 to 5 days before, 3 to 5 days after. We know the RSI right now is sitting at 53, so that's important. We're above the yellow signal line you see right here. We'll talk about that some tonight. But again, we hit a high of the 55, 56 on the RSI. That's where we tend to get bullish when we can start showing strength above that 55, 56 level of the RSI. So we'll keep an eye on that. We know obviously we just crossed above our 236 of our dead cat bounce, which is ultimately from we'll go to this chart, which is ultimately from our April 5th of or April 14th, I'm sorry, that 114 date. It is ultimately sitting above our 382 level of this Fibonacci extension. So very important. We'll continue to keep an eye on that as well. We like to keep that strength and then continue to up step, up step, up step these levels all the way to the 888 right back here in this trading range of around 55K. So that's something I'm looking out for in the near distant future, is to continue to, gradually break up towards that level. We know that we got that resistance coming in probably around that 47K, 48K range. Something we're paying attention to, which is the top side of this trend line that doesn't hold much confluence. It's a trend line, but it's obviously kept us in this large bull pennant when we look at this in a grandiose view over time in this sideways price action. We're over 80% of our way through the apex of this triangle, looking to break out one way or the other. So something very important as we sit here at 41K. Um, you know, failing to hold that 236 right now. So again, falling below that again. We'll see what happens. We know this low that we've been talking about coming in 5 days before the new moon was 123 days from our local top of a 69K in the macro structure, the grandiose view. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. We've talked about how important that number is quite some time. And this very volatile day of February 28th, closing off, the end of February, leading into March 1st, a true new year to the occult. being 222 days since our bottom in the grandiose view, another retest of the bottom side of this trend line going all the way back to C19 before we had our breakout to 69K. We saw that that was 222 days. We know how important that is being in the 222 year. We'll go ahead and get rid of that as well. Got some arrows right here. Not quite sure what they are for right now. Oh, that's obviously 44. My next prediction to see a breakout above that 43, 44K range to retest these local highs in the structure. We need to get back above that 44.4, that 44.5 range. Basically have a daily close above 45 and we're good to go. And this obviously 223 or the 322 date coming up 2 days from now is something I'm keeping an eye on as well, starting the 40-day period leading into May 1st being May Day, and I'll show you guys that. But a very blood sacrifice ritual time period for the occult. Again, 40-day period leading us into May Day, May Day, May Day. So do your own due diligence and research to fly under the algorithm if I haven't already been exposed to it by mentioning these things. Then we're just gonna leave that there. But keep an eye on that 44K range is something we'll look for positivity in the markets moving forward. When we look at this RSI and we break it down, we see this resistance has been broken. Obviously, we're below it right now, but it's that resistance of 55. It tends to be a volatile period. We give it above it. I hold it bullish. Again, Satoshi Nakamoto giving us that 55, Bitcoin's creator. So I'll pay attention to it. We're in this obvious uptrend, setting higher lows in the structure. But we're obviously closing into this period with lower highs as well. So we'll see how this breaks out. We're above the signal line, which is very bullish, but we don't tend to hang out there very long. So we'll see what happens. Do we come back and retest it before a breakout? But either way, we're getting close to these overheld, overbought territories, something I'm going to keep in mind with everyone who's, looking to do more trading or learn more about technical analysis. That's something you can pay attention to. So getting above that overheld, overbought signal is typically a signal to go to the oversold or underbought territory as well. So pay attention to that. All right, see where we want to go from here. All right, we're very sideways night right now, and it's not the favorite place to be for the people who are very, moon boyish. But if you're someone who enjoys this stage of the market where you're going sideways and you have moments to accumulate and capitulate at highs, and you're getting, lows at full moons and bullish energy at new moons, this is like a swing trader's paradise. I mean, how much easier could it be, pioneers? You know, um, we'll have to pay attention to see how it goes. People just trade the moon cycles since they've learned it from me, and for 9, 10 months now, and it's still working to this day. And I'm so happy for those people because that little change for them has been able to offer them a lot of ability to save some time and not overthink things so much by just doing one thing that we use here. So it's very important. Excuse me while I grab a drink of water. All right. So congratulations to those who are following astrology and taking advantage of these markets. It's so very important. The typical person, the millionaire, doesn't do this, but the billionaires and trillionaires, they follow these things that we use here. So very important. All right. All right. So I try and teach people that if you have a lot of things to add up and put together and make your analysis stronger than by all means do it. But the most important thing to remember that's what's running this market is, well, number one, your emotions, numerology, gematria, and astrology. And it's been proven time and time again. And I hope that my work, if you go back over the last 2 months and just watch every video, you see this. As we transitioned into different zodiacs or just the powerful number connections that I've made during certain events, etc., on certain days, at times. There's a lot of times where you have this market when it's on a weekend, again, where there's no institutions trading, no options expiries, no nothing. It's just retail, and amazing things happen, apparently. You know, um, but it's amazing to see what happens and takes place during the astrological perspective of things is all I'm saying. And the people out there that have been doing a beautiful job at helping this community further our research and insights into these things like astrology and how we can perceive this market, then grateful for you for sharing your words of wisdom with me in the background. It's always appreciative to have a new set of eyes around here in the community, that we're building of, nuclear physicists, cops, doctors, nurses, all kinds of people here on the Daily Candle Close News. It's really amazing. And big shout outs to all of y'all. We know recently we had this low and this higher low, and it's not by much. It's just roughly like $1,000, roughly 800, something like that. Um, but it's something to pay attention to. We know how important the 24th of this time period has been every month, giving us the low each and every month so far since the beginning of the year. Understand what I'm trying to say? This could be, an important period. When we have price action on the weekends that are bullish, though, we can see CME on Sunday night drain it all away, leading into the 21st tomorrow, that 3-2-1 date. So it's something I'm paying attention to tomorrow, Monday, Moon Day. Could it be volatile? We'll have to continue to see how that plays out. We know the 22nd typically gives us our reset, recycle in the markets. So that 24th could bring us our low, or a pop up out of this downtrend if we were to see one from here. Ultimately, what matters is if we're holding structure above this, obviously 33, we'll just say 33K, 32K, 9 range. So the one thing I can say is we have a new moon coming up on February or April 1st, and could we retest 44, 47K into April 1st? That's the question. We know Satoshi Nakamoto's birthday is he'll turn 47 years old on 4/5, April 4th or April 5th. I'm sorry. Bitcoin gives us that 45, so we'll pay attention to that. That time period. With all that being said, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign out of this one and leave it there. I just want to come out and bring you a decode on the astrological new year as to why we were seeing 41K in the price action for Bitcoin and talk about what we could expect moving forward. I'll do another decode probably in the next day or two, possibly in the morning, as we tend to see what the 21st brings us overnight. With all that being said, take care and God bless. We'll see you in the next one.